What it do, y'all? Welcome back to Fandom Frequency. And if this is your first time joining us, welcome to the multiverse of pop culture. We get into all sorts of different topics around here, man. Movies, TV shows, comic books, skateboarding, wrestling, whatever we're feeling like talking about at the moment, we talk about it here on the channel. And seeing as some of these subjects I just mentioned, skateboarding, music, anime, all these different things, we've recently been a bit busy around here on the channel, but I got some really awesome plans to start expanding a little bit of what we're covering on the channel and, getting our boy Drew back on for some more of the anime stuff. We got some animation stuff we're going to be talking about. You know your boy right here. My name is Will, your host, man, coming at y'all with the horror stuff. You got my boy Skips, who's always with us for everything in the sci-fi, sci-fi realm, if you would say, your Marvel, your DC, your Star Wars. But, we like to keep it grounded with the Daredevils and everything. So just for some of you that are just joining the channel recently after we hit our big 300 goal, just want to let you guys know, been a little more movies and TV heavy, but we got some really cool stuff coming down the pipeline. Got some Christopher Nolan content coming up for the new Oppenheimer film. So yeah, we got a lot of really cool stuff that I'm trying to implement into the channel and work with all the guys here on the team and everyone involved with us. Got some collabs and stuff. So we got a lot of great stuff going on around here, and just want to say thank you so much to all the new subscribers and supporters of the channel. Just hit that big 300, so we're trying to hit that big 1,000 subscriber goal by the end of the year. So join this awesome community today where we like to, talk about art, critique each other's art, and just, make each other better, and just talk about what we love the most in a positive way. So with no further ado, let's get into the topic today. And of course, y'all know we've been covering these shows week to week, and this is no different. We're at Secret Invasion, Episode 3, baby. Episode 3 of Secret Invasion, the latest MCU series on Disney+. One of the first big projects of Phase 5. We're 3 projects deep into Phase 5 right now. And I gotta say, for me, at least personally, loved this episode. I am definitely saying that there's so far 2 for 3 of Phase 5 right now. I wasn't the hugest fan of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Did not hate or dislike the film entirely. I just had a lot of issues with it and was a little disappointed by it. Really loved the first 2 Ant-Man films. The second one grew on me as I kind of rewatched it over the last few years. That one was even disappointing for me the first time I saw it. I thought they got a little too goofy in it, but I kind of appreciate some of the more grounded, goofy nature of the film. Kind of feels like almost a 2000s Judd Apatow movie if there were superheroes in it. Which to me is not a bad thing, honestly. I kind of miss that era. Comedies are a little more fewer and far between. You just saw No Hard Feelings recently, and, that's one of the few more raunchy, more kind of grounded comedies I can think of since, like, maybe Good Boys or Tag, We had very few far in between, Girls Trip.
It's been a while, yeah.
We haven't had a lot of those. Game Night, that's a damn good one. That's probably my favorite of the bunch. Nice Guys is probably my favorite, actually, then Game Night. So we haven't had a lot of those real fun, more edgy comedies in a while, so I got to say that Ant-Man and the Wasp didn't quite do it for me, but I absolutely loved Guardians Volume 3. Might be my favorite film of the year, to be completely honest with you. It's really hard because it's been a pretty good year for what I've seen. I have missed a few things I wanted to see, but I'll be playing catch-up. And I absolutely have been enjoying the hell out of Secret Invasion, man. Especially this episode. I really feel like this had the perfect pacing, the perfect amount of political intrigue, and didn't rely on explosions and action to do anything. And that's the thing I love with this series that I kind of miss from the MCU sometimes, where this is a little more substance over style, a little bit more dialogue driven, a little more character driven, and really feels like a continuation of what's been going on in phases 3 and 4, and really carrying things forward in a big way and a small way, and just simultaneously really doing such a great job with that. Ben Mendelsohn, freaking treasure, man. This guy is amazing. I absolutely love this actor, man. He's doing a great job with Talos, adding so much pathos to the character, adding so much gravitas to the performance, with his interactions with Nick Fury, how their relationship's really strained at this point, and their friendship is really a bit contentious at this point, and he really feels like that he doesn't get the just credit for all the things he helped Nick Fury accomplish over the course of his career in the whole history of the MCU since 95, as we've seen it. And I love the way that they just continue with the flashbacks in the beginning in 95 or 96, how they kind of continue the timeline forward in the past with every episode leading into what's going on in the present in 2025, 2026 in the MCU. So I just love the way they're just really writing this series, man. Like, it's just the dialogue's witty, you know what I mean? The mystery and the overall political intrigue really works for me, and just great acting all around. Olivia Colman came back into this episode once again, killed it in the scene that she was in, and I do think things are getting a little bit more interesting with Emilia Clarke's character. But I don't know. Is that it? Is that it for her character? It looks like it. It looks like it. Getting into the big spoilers right there, right off the bat. Yeah. I might not love it. I might not like it. We'll get into it. But overall, yeah. I really, really love this episode. I think this might be the strongest episode of the season yet. Mm-hmm. And I think it's moving the story at a really good pace and really leaves things in an interesting place with the villain. And that actor, I forgot to get his name again before this thing. My apologies, but really like that actor, seen him in some other stuff, and he's doing a great job with this villain, keeping it very, very cool, keeping it very understated, and, just really, really giving a really strong performance, but in a subtle way. Sometimes you don't get that in the MCU. Sometimes you don't get that in blockbusters in general with these kind of things, so I really, really dug the show, man. But what's your overall thoughts on this episode and just with the show overall so far?
So far, for myself, I think Secret Invasion is writing... It's doing a lot better than what I expected it, because like Secret Invasion has been like that thing that kind of evolves with like a lot of the heroes and stuff like that, right? And
yeah,
like
tons of Avengers. I only read part of the series. I didn't get a chance to collect all of them, but a buddy of mine back in college, he let me borrow the ones that he had, and I was watching some YouTube videos on it and everything just to kind of get the rest of the storyline. But I never got a chance to read the whole thing, but. It's so awesome how they implement all the Avengers, but the way they've kind of wrote themselves around that, pretty brilliant in my opinion.
It's like that. They did pretty well in that regards too. And I think a lot of people so far it's kind of like that 50-50, because a lot of people don't like that noir kind of spy thriller kind of like I guess kind of show, which I can understand. That I get their criticisms with that, but I right now don't really mind it too much. It's not like it's the show's like. Because I heard people were complaining a lot about it I think in the first 2 episodes, and I feel like it's like not as bad what they say it is. I mean, there was like far worse war shows that Marvel has released, but so far I've been enjoying everything with the story of Nick Fury kind of like getting back into the groove of things. I feel like it's kind of like. It's interesting to see him being pinned to a certain point, because right now he's kind of like up against a wall at Earth with dealing with so much, and his only true companion right now is Talos, because his so-called wife, I feel like at the ending of it, you kind of like feel like there's like he's kind of he's been getting backstabbed like a lot.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So it's kind of interesting to see Nick Fury in this light, but it's also interesting too to start hearing the. A little bit into the story like of this episode of how Talos was kind of telling Nick Fury like he wouldn't really be like anything in Agents of Shield or within his like time period of the 90s to where he's at now because of the Skrulls' help and everything. I feel like it's interesting to hear all of that, and I feel like it's kind of interesting to see the I guess the duality of like what we seen Nick Fury within the earlier phases of Marvel to like now, and I myself has been enjoying it. The action has been pretty light, but I don't mind it. I don't mind that there's like not too much action. I know a lot of people don't like that, but for me, I like a whole don't mind like a little bit of dialogue in between the episodes. Kind of save it for like sprinkled it all across the show. But for myself, I've been kind of enjoying it. It's not like it's not like anything incredible. It's like pretty average for everything so far. A lot of the cast is pretty much nailing everything. How you mentioned before with Ben playing Talos, I think he's kind of like my favorite.
Ben Mendelsohn, man, that guy. He's just
kind of
good in everything. Everything I've seen this guy in, he's so good. He doesn't have to like go way over the top with anything, but he doesn't. He's not like boring. Like you can't take your eyes off the guy, but he just plays every character differently. And plays it with such pathos. And I feel like with this particular show, he really made this character more fleshed out in such a small amount of time already in the show. And I feel like he's not even getting a ton of screen time, but he's just adding so much to it. And I think only like truly great actors can do that. And I think Sam Jackson did that with Nick Fury early on before we really got more into his backstory and more into him in Winter Soldier to now. So I think getting to see that with the Skrulls, I think, has been really great. They've really implemented them very well into the MCU with this show. Much better than Captain Marvel, man. Like, just on an objective level, just with the way they wrote him in that movie, just
Mm-hmm.
wasn't really as fleshed out. And that's more the people that wrote or the directors and writers on that one. I wouldn't really blame that completely on Feige. You know what I'm saying? He
Yeah.
has to take some of the blame, but I would blame that more on the writing because I still think with what they went for in Captain Marvel, there was a way to flesh it out better. And this
Of
show's done
course.
that immensely so, dude. So I'm with you there. And
I think
um,
another thing too,
yeah,
like when we got introduced to like a little bit so far with the super, like kind of like the development of the Super Scroll
yeah,
as himself, like we're gonna be introduced to that
yeah,
because this
extremists.
episode, yeah, we got what you may call it. We got a glimpse of that, right? We got a
Mm-hmm.
glimpse of that within this episode, and it's gonna be interesting to see how the debut is gonna be. Is it gonna be with actually within the show, or is it gonna be kind of saving itself? Because like, isn't his first this? If I could remember, the Super Scroll doesn't really make an appearance. I think his first appearance, like comic book wise, was Fantastic Four, wasn't it? Like, wasn't it
Yes.
Fantastic Four? Like he
Yeah,
was
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
like that first appearance.
Yeah,
So
70s, 80s, I believe. So they've been around for a minute and has been a very prevalent thing with the scroll. So, and all the MCU fans like us, we've been speculating about that ever since they confirmed it back in Phase 3 back in Phase 2 to be in Phase 3 in Captain Marvel. So it's really cool the way they're implementing it in the show, but making it feel grounded, man. Like it does not feel like this big over the top beam in the sky stuff that people
mhm.
complain about with the overall comic book. I'll say more superhero genre because comic books can incorporate a lot of things like Kingsman and stuff like that. So I'll just go with superhero movies. I feel like sometimes I can get a little cliche. This to me just feels right. What they would do? Like we're gonna use the abilities of the best, strongest people here to up our game and take these fuckers out. And I'm like, that to me just makes sense. It doesn't feel like this crazy over the top alien type thing like Suicide Squad or something. It just
Yeah,
feels like, okay, yeah, like that makes sense. We were gonna take the best abilities. Like if the X-Men were in here, holy shit, man.
it would
This
have
should get
been.
crazy like the comics, dude. Like they were doing Wolverine's healing ability and all that. Like it's pretty insane with the stuff that they were able to pull from that. So the fact that the X gene's not as big of a factor or could be is kind of interesting too. They can play around with that. But yeah, the Super Scroll development, really good stuff, man. I just love the way they're pulling it all forward, dude. And but yeah, man. I mean, any more general thoughts from you, man, before we just break down all the
As
big points?
besides all that, yeah, like everything's. I've been pretty satisfied with everything so far. Like how you piggyback off your political views with the show. It's interesting to see the infiltration of that and how crazy of a shit it can happen at a moment's notice between like the powerful nations, stuff like that, ending it to be like the next big war, the World War III, if you can say, and stuff like that.
Yeah, man.
So I've been pretty content with the show so far. I've been liking it.
Yeah, for sure, man. I've definitely been digging it. But as we kind of get into a quick recap here of all the big plot points of this episode, man, we picked up with that 1995 or 96 flashback with Nick Fury meeting up with his now in the present wife. Just meeting up for a date or whatever, and just showing them at a different point in their life. Right after Fury just got the eye patch fresh and everything like that. And then we pick up in the present with him and his wife, and things are very, very strained. She feels very bitter and very betrayed by him leaving her for so long and, kind of just leaving her behind on space and going off doing things with the Avengers and whatnot. And so, depending on the way you want to read it, it could be for pretty much all 4 or 5 phases of the MCU. He's pretty much been neglecting being around her.
Mm-hmm.
So it is
Mm-hmm.
interesting to see how that does seem to be the way they're kind of writing it into the show. And that's the one thing I do have a slight issue with that I do think, uh, she seems to have been there this whole time, it does feel a little far fetched. But not a huge issue for the show. But you definitely buy it just the way that they interact with each other. But going on from there, we pick up with Talos doing his rendezvous with Gravin over there at the fancy museum building and whatever, and he's having a whole heated conversation with him about this isn't the way to do it and all that, and he's like, well, I'm a better general than you. People don't believe in what you're doing. You're pretty much a little bitch essentially. And he's like, hey man, better keep my daughter's name out your fucking mouth. No, it's funny.
Within that whole art scene, yeah.
Yeah.
And it was interesting to see like that whole dynamic of between Talos and Gravik. It was like Gravik, right?
Yeah, Gravik.
Gravik. And
Yeah, Gravik. Yeah, I say Gravik.
It's
Gravik.
like
There you go.
it was interesting to see those two, like Gravik's kind of like mainly just going at Talos, like and explaining himself in a why he's doing it for a better cause. Like Talos kind of lost his way throughout that restaurant throughout that restaurant, the art, I guess the art gallery,
Yeah.
and they were kind of having like that whole, I guess, kind of like debate about which one's right and which one's wrong, and it was interesting to see like their point of views and stuff like that. But and you kind of like was it Talos kind of got very defensive when every time Gravix kind of like mentioned his daughter, which is like it's kind of is disrespectful. But Gravik kind of has that position. It's like you're lucky that I didn't send your daughter back in like in a body bag.
I was like,
because like
bars.
I kind of already know like who's the infantry, who's like kind of feeding you like feeding the
Yeah,
information
I know
to the right people.
she's a rat. You know, it's like
Yeah.
The Departed. Who's the rat? Are you the rat?
Yeah, yeah, and it was cool. It was interesting to see all that being played out. But no, essentially, I liked how Talos kind of mentions like humans like most ferocity is like when they're actually band together and stuff like that. Officially, like that's where they're like the most peak
When
pretty
things are at
much.
their worst, you know, World War II type shit, which is true. When humanity actually is united and gets together, all rising tides raise all ships or whatever. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, which was cool. It was very cool with that the art gallery scene and restaurant scene. It was also it just like we've seen it in the commercial for this, the trailer, but like seeing everybody, like how much like Talos is surrounded by everybody.
It was
It
still
was
a dope moment when it played in the show. I almost forgot about it. So that's the one thing I actually really like with the series, where some of the moments from the trailers didn't feel like they're giving away the story. You know what I mean? We didn't almost know we were getting to that point until like I really thought about it when he was sitting there and like kind of went across the table. I was like, oh right. And then they all changed. I was like, oh snap! I forgot we saw that in the trailer. So it is pretty
Yeah.
cool the way they're being able to weave in some of these moments and everything like that, man. But as we continued from there, Talos is pretty much forced to not really make a move in that moment, and then him and Fury meet up again later, and they're having their beef back and forth and everything, where he's like, they're pretty much pissed at each other, and he feels like, and like we discussed earlier, Talos just feels like he doesn't really deserve or get the recognition from Fury that he deserves for really being one of the big pivotal forces with him and his people, really helping get him to the status and power that he has. When we met him when he wanted to launch the Avengers Initiative and S.H.I.E.L.D. back in '08 with our boy Iron Man. So everything that he did to help him get to that point, he feels like he doesn't really get the credit he deserves. And I think a lot of people can relate to that with friends that like work on projects and things like that, where maybe sometimes things break down and they don't get along or don't feel like they get the credit that they should get on something, where people are in bands or other things like that. And I think people can kind of relate to that aspect in the show here. So I like the way that they're able to really ground their friendship and really make it seem like a true blue thing that I feel like before it didn't seem like they were really that close to comrades, or at least I wasn't buying that as much in Far From Home and stuff like that. But I feel like this show has really done a great job in fleshing that out. And Fury over there reaching out to Olivia Colman's character to get the information in order for them to stop that missile launch that is inevitably going to cause World War III. And we got a few of the Skrulls over there infiltrating that launch site over there to launch to launch that nuke attack and everything like that. So it's a big race for time to beat the clock, and that's just true, spy thriller fashion. And I love the way that they're always able to implement like this ticking time bomb, so to speak, and really make you kind of feel a little bit of the tension that the characters feel. And I feel like that's a good mark of a thriller, you know what I mean? And I know some fans out there are not digging that more slow burn kind of Andor vibe they're kind of bringing to the show, but I do feel like they're giving us what the trailers presented. So I do feel like, I feel like you should have seen it coming a little bit. I don't feel like it's like Boba Fett, where they told you we're getting Sopranos in the galaxy far, far away, but really we're getting Go-Go Power Rangers in Star Wars.
Yeah,
So,
which is
or we're going to get, Gran Torino in Star Wars. I'm Boba Fett. Get off my lawn.
It's just kind of like like you mentioned before, it was like we were shown what we were given in the trailers. It's not anything like we kind of knew it was gonna be a spy thriller. If you didn't think anything outside of that, then I don't know what you were kind of expecting too much into it, because
Exactly.
it's kind of was fed to you saying like this is kind of gonna be kind of that guess who kind of game of like who's really a Skrull, who really isn't a Skrull, who's on whose side pretty much. And I feel like if people, I don't know if it's over high expectations, because I think it is Secret Invasion, that they were expecting like all these things to happen, but realistically, like
there's no Avengers right now, man. Like a lot of these
no,
characters aren't around post Blip, so it really wouldn't make sense for them to have infiltrated those characters when they weren't really around or around the Skrulls. So to me, it only makes sense that the show is written this way.
yeah, because at this point, like even then, like even with Avengers being gone, like a lot of the other hired, like pretty much like the other teams, like the X-Men and all the others, are pretty much not in. They're not in here just yet. They're not going to be in here till like the end of phase, maybe phase 5, phase 6.
Yeah,
Like
for
we're
sure.
not going to get like a lot of the characters that people or that should be in Secret Invasion. But I don't know. I think it's just the over expectations of the show is kind of a dawn against like pretty much everybody's minds, and also too, this is like the time where Marvel is trying to get out of that whole,
In a little
I
bit of
guess,
funk, I guess you could say.
that funk from phase 4. Like they're trying to break away from that. And I guess people are like I said, like we've talked about it already before, like a lot of people are just like hating Marvel just for being Marvel and stuff. Like they're trying to act as if like the first 3 phases was like all the way like top quality, when
Flawless,
in reality,
yeah, where it's
it's
not
like
really, y'all.
it's
Not
like
really.
it's mainly like phase like towards like phase 3. That's where a lot of like stuff, like if you followed along, like that's when the payoff kind of like does happen a lot, was in the and like the ending of the saga. So I think right now it's just we're trying to like people are just constantly like bashing on it now because of like the poor reception of phase 4, which I do understand. Like maybe they could have waited maybe a couple of years, like because like it was
I
during
do
COVID.
feel like you talked about that before. A cool down period, I think, would have been smart. I think we barely should have been getting back to it 4 or
Yeah.
5 years later right now, just to
Yeah.
let things breathe. I even wish we got all the same stuff, good or bad, whatever you want to say. I just think it would have let people have a chance to miss it a little bit, kind of get
Yeah.
excited a little more again. I feel like people getting it right away made some people kind of pessimistic towards the MCU. Other people were kind of tapped out on it that aren't like hardcore Marvel fans. Because people like me and you, we're literally lifelong Marvel fans. Like we've liked all forms of media of it. So to us, it's kind of a part of our lifestyle. It's kind of a part of something that's important to us. And we can criticize or critique something, but at the same time, we're rooting for it. We want it to be around. And I think
Yeah.
some people they don't have that affinity for it, and some people that do take it into like a more toxic direction.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the issue now. And I think it was kind of inevitable. I think anything with a fandom this large in this current climate that we live in today with social media and just the overall polarizing political nature of everything and the way that we're just not united on a lot of stuff as a nation, at least. I'm not really going to talk about the whole world, but just in the U.S., things are very polarizing. Things are very antagonistic, I guess you can say, in a certain sense. So a lot of nuance is lost on conversation as well. Because,
Yeah.
like you said, man, you follow MCU from day one to now, it's always been a rocky road. There's always been missteps. There's always been issues. The only difference to me that we don't have as on point, I think now, even with some of these really dope projects that we're getting at the moment, or really good to dope, I would say is just the overall connectivity and the way that everything ties in together. That, to me, is not the strong suit right now with the MCU.
Yeah.
That's the
'cause-
more problem. So I think that's what really created this narrative, and I think that's more the issue that's permeating through this stuff. I'm enjoying 90% of it, but it's not connecting all the way through. I still don't get where the TVA plays into certain things. And I
Yeah.
still don't get what the after effects of Doctor Strange are going to be. I still don't know what the incursions mean really in the MCU. We know it from the comics, but I don't really know what he's doing with Charlize Theron. We don't even know if she's coming back yet or when she's coming back. They haven't even talked to her yet, if she's
Yeah.
telling the truth in those interviews. So things just feel very up in the air a bit in that regard. But I would say this show is kind of doing a good way to kind of bridge the gap in a lot of things. So I feel like, as I've said in the past too, I believe on the show that Phase 5 can kind of do a little bit of that course correction. And they can start to pump the brakes like they are. And they can start refining things and cutting things and trimming some of the fat and finding ways to connect things. Deadpool 3 is really heavily rumored to have TVA in it. I do feel like that's for sure. Mobius is up in the air, but I do feel like the TVA is going to play a role with him time traveling, since he was time traveling at the end of the second Deadpool film. I don't feel like that's too much of a stretch, and I feel like that's a good way to tie it in. The MCU is always there. He just jumped to those multiverses right now in
Yep.
Deadpool 3. That's why he's going to run into Logan. Hey, what's up? Ain't you dead? Like, not in this universe. What the fuck you talking about, bub? You know, like,
Yeah,
there's so many
yeah.
ways that they can tie it in a fun, zany way. But I think that Phase 5 can kind of course correct a little bit with the overall connection of the shared universe aspect and make things be a bit more streamlined. And if the quality level can stay more good than bad like it used to, for the most part, I think things will start to move in a more positive direction. But you're going to have toxic fans, man. The MCU is too big to not have that at this point. Star Wars is always going to have it. these juggernaut franchises, when you get to that level, polarizing toxic fanboys and fangirls, that's going to be a part of your fan base. That's going to be a part of the conversation. That's just the unfortunate part of being in the limelight today. Musicians, everything. It's just everywhere. So the MCU is no different, but I do feel like things are getting a lot better here, and pretty much with the last few big plot points, and this one's not really too many. We just pretty much find out that, or we see that Fury and Talos get to the guy that's about to launch the strike and everything like that posed as the military guy, takes him out, essentially what Talos does. A little bit surprisingly, they end up averting the launch, and the day is saved for now. Fury's wife has officially backstabbed him and is working with Gravik as another mole in the situation to keep Gravik close to Fury and what's going on with him. And I kind of saw that coming from the early part of the episode in that conversation they had in that first opening scene, if you will, in the present day. So kind of saw that coming, but is definitely an interesting development to see what her overall motivations are going to be and if this truly is to help Gravik or to help herself at the same time. So going to be interesting to see where that character falls in line with this whole plot line and everything like that. But and we might have had the death of Emilia Clarke's character, whose name escapes me at the moment. But that's kind of a bummer for me, man. I'm kind of hoping that she is alive somehow, because I really, really was dig Emilia Clarke and was really starting to get interested more and more in her character as the episodes are going on. And I feel like if they did kill her, I feel like they did drop the ball a little bit in that regard with that character, with her and Talos. There was a lot of character development there that we could have really sunk our teeth into there already more than we had at this moment. But, I mean, if that's what we got, then it is what we got. But it's a little bit of a mixed element for me.
I feel like I don't think Gaia is actually dead, though.
Me neither, man. Gaia, thank you.
I think with Emily Clarke's character, I think she's smart enough to be like, all right, if obviously when we die, we go back to our natural selves. I feel like she does that before Gravik goes in for the kill shot, because that kind of like saves her in that moment. Because I honestly feel like with her character, like that's killing her off in that way will feel like so off-putting. And if that was the case, it will kind of like start declining for me, because
same here. That would be the first big negative of the show, because I really don't have really any at this point. It's not like exceptional, but it's just above average for me. So it's like, hey, y'all keep this up. I'm cool, man. So yeah, with you, I'm like, that would be the first big issue or big misstep of the show.
Definitely. And I feel like she's probably going to play something within possibly episode 4 and 5. If she's not really truly dead, then we won't see her probably until like within those episodes. Most likely episode 4, if just so like people could be like, oh, okay, like Emily Clarke's still around, Gaia's still around, Talos maybe, Talos will probably obviously be in an outrage when he hears about, like, if he hears it from Gravik, but in reality, Gaia's going to still be alive. But it was also interesting too, because we're going to see like Rhodes, like I'm pretty sure Rhodes was on the talking to Nick Fury's wife about
oh snap, I didn't even pick up on that.
About Gravik. Yeah, because that was his voice. I'm pretty sure that's his voice that was saying, like, he was the one that was like saying like, oh, you're not talking to Gravik, you're talking to me, like you can't go anything beyond that. So I feel like Rhodes is for sure a Skrull, and which would make sense, because like it's not really his demeanor of like how he was talking to Nick Fury.
No,
like he does have that like little
he can definitely let a motherfucker know, but he's not going to do that to Fury of all people when he knows the man's history, when he knows what his accomplishments are. Even if he is a little bit off his game these days, I don't think he'd come at him that hard. I think he'd be like, damn, bro, like you kind of made a mess out there, man, but I got you, but man, you're kind of fucking up right now. Because that's more his attitude, like, I got your back, bro, but I'm still going to let you know what the real is. But I don't think he would come so disrespectful, because even him and Tony in Iron Man 2, Tony was being a dick, man, and he didn't come at him that hard. I feel like until he really deserved it, and Fury didn't do anything to really get that reaction. So I feel like the way he was being so antagonistic, I was like, that was a clear giveaway. And I think longtime MCU fans are definitely going to pick up on that quicker, because it's like, man, like that's not Rhodes.
That's not Rhodes.
That's definitely not Rhodey. So I definitely feel like he definitely got infiltrated for sure. And that sets up some really cool shit for Armor Wars, like you mentioned before. I love that. That's what I'm saying. Like, this feels like good old classic MCU right here. We're setting things up, but we're telling this story. And if you can pick up on these details, you can kind of see where things are going. You can kind of speculate what to come and what's going to come, and they're setting these things up in the background a little bit, right? But the
Definitely,
foreground
definitely.
is what's important, and the story right now is what's important, and that's what Quantumania was missing. What's with
Mm-hmm.
Cassie and what's with Scott? Tell me that story right now. And then when we get to Kang, that could be what's going to happen for later. But what about what's going on with the characters in the world right now? And that's what was missing, I think, from that. I think that's what's missing from Love and Thunder. Let's
Mm-hmm.
repeat the same thing from before. No, Wakanda forever. What happens when they lose their king, they lose their brother, they lose their son? What happens when they lose their leader?
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're going to tell the story about. And then we're going to set up some entering, he's a mutant, Namor, or Namor, if you want to say it correctly. We're not going to get into the controversies here because there's no definitives there. So just putting that out there. But,
Mm-hmm.
just getting into the character, that's a mutant. We're tying in X-Men stuff. But we're still telling the story of Wakanda. We're still telling the story of Ramona. And we're still telling the story of Shuri and everything like that. And we're going to give we're going to give respect to Chadwick Boseman. So to me, that's when the MCU is at its best, even when it's not the most exceptional thing in the world. That's when it
Mm-hmm.
feels like MCU storytelling. That's when it feels like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. When we're
Mm-hmm.
giving you a story and we're setting up a universe, but we're going to give you the story first and foremost. And if you know this and if you know that, it's going to enrich it. It's going to make it taste better. You got extra seasoning. You got that secret in and out menu. But if you still go to
Mm-hmm.
In and Out and get a number 2 with some grilled onions on it, it's going to taste good. So
Yeah, yeah.
that's where the MCU really works. And I think that's the thing I love with this show the most. Even though it's not the illest show in the world, it just
Mm-hmm.
feels like good stuff. Like it's consistent. It makes sense. I can follow along. And I'm not bored. I'm not getting, missing out on anything. But the Amelia Clark situation with Gaia, I think that's going to be the big determining factor moving forward for episode 4 and how they
Mm-hmm.
tie up everything. If they can finish strong, it's definitely a big thumbs up for me. Definitely not an S tier show. Maybe not even A tier, but a solid B for me right now is probably where I would throw that thing. If we were going to
Solid.
rank the Phase 5 down the line, it's probably going to be like a B tier show.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe A tier if they can really kick in the high gear in these next 3 episodes. But overall, very solid episode, very solid series. I would put it in that Falcon and Winter Soldier kind of level. Really
Mm-hmm.
strong. Better villains, though, so far. The motivations are clear. I understand why they're doing what they're doing. There's a very big parallel, I think, in a political sense, too, even with Fury mentioning the whole thing with how, a lot of black folks out there went and got into these high levels of power to even the playing field, right? But
Mm-hmm.
we didn't get a lot of the recognition that black folks feel like they deserve for making certain discoveries and inventions and things like that. That's what the Skrulls are feeling right now. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's a very interesting parallel to play with a black character in Nick Fury in your show if you
Mm-hmm.
pick up on those details. So I like the subtlety there. I like the nuance there. I really, really dig the show. Yeah, man. Would you pretty much say rating wise, it's pretty much the same for you? Raised, lowered, or
It's like pretty much the same. Like I said, like it's not, which isn't a bad thing. Like it's like pretty like average. It's not like any, if it could like, it's not anything lower. Like, and compared to like the previous 2 weeks episodes, I would still like still say it's pretty much at that same ranking. Still a 7. I do feel like there is sometimes like the choreography, like let's say for the instance when Gaia was escaping, or when she was trying to get out of the whole
yeah,
base and stuff
definitely
like
not no
that.
Winter Soldier type stuff.
Yeah, like I feel like that one, like with one of the guards, I seen him like when Emily Clark was like fighting the other one of the guards, the other guy was just standing there trying to unload his gun. I was like, dude,
Yeah.
why didn't you just go after her? Like, what the fuck is this? But
Yep.
like, there's
You
like
start to
little
notice
instances
those little
like that.
spots in there where, like John
Yeah,
Wick, you really don't notice that sort of thing because it still seems like something's always going on. Where
yeah,
the choreography is not as clean because it's like you can pick up on those little moments where someone's like,
yeah. Like, it's just kind of
ugh,
like,
I gotta wait so he can punch me before I punch him.
kind of like yeah, and it's pretty much in those scenarios for me. Like I noticed those like little like the details like that with the choreography. I think the way they kind of could shoot like shooting the way that Gaia, like how when she turned to a scroll, like we didn't have to have like that full review. I think like full like
CGI.
CGI,
Yeah, they
like,
kind
or
of
no,
cut
like
away
the
and go back.
POV. Like they can
Yeah.
kind of like not show her face, but kind of show her like changing from a human to a scroll, and then like you see Gavik just like walk away. Like little things like that. They can like if they do different little shots like that, I feel like it'll probably be a lot more like it may be a little bit more impacting to the viewer.
A little more
Thinking,
dynamic. You feel
yeah,
at least for yourself, like it would be like, oh man, like there's a little bit more going on visually, a little more, yeah, just a little bit more. Like they could just punch it up as they say. They can kind of improve it just a little bit. But
Yeah,
overall,
yeah,
it's just fairly very fairly consistent show. I'm at the same thing. I'd probably just
yeah.
give it an 8. Very strong, good stuff. Never bored, never checking out. I'm completely invested in the episode. You know what I mean?
Oh
I'm
yeah.
not like, holy shit, man, but it's just like, oh damn, this is good. This is really good right here. I wonder what's gonna happen next.
It kind of like it does give you that guessing. Like for me, I'm still thinking I'm having more of a feeling like Nick Fury might be a scroll. Like there's a good possibility that he could
Yeah,
be
that's
because
still
like
it's still a possibility. Yeah, for
because
sure.
because like even for like a lot of like Nick Fury's mannerisms doesn't really seem like doesn't really like seem like himself within like the first three phases
It does
like
seem a
at
little more
all.
aggressive.
It seems more aggressive. It seems like, of course, he may be out. He'll like be out of loop. Like, let's say if he was he was a scroll, like the real Nick Fury wouldn't be like this much out of loop with so many things. It seems
That is
like,
one element for me as well. That I'm like, that's why I haven't really been going into that as heavy because I'm like, I want to wait and see if this is Fury or not. Because if it is Fury, then I feel like they maybe could have maybe made him not so far out of the loop. But if it's a scroll, then it's like brilliant. So
yeah,
I wouldn't say that's like a huge problem for the show if it's the real Fury, but it is a little bit something I've kind of noticed too. Like I don't think he'd be that far out of the loop. Even Age of Ultron, he was like, yeah, I'm kind of aware of what's going on, but what the fuck happened to cause this shit? And then they kind of fleshed out the situation. Then he's like, oh, okay. But he
yeah,
knew Ultron's out there doing something. He was just like, what the fuck are they doing now? But he
yeah,
knew they were doing something. So to me, it was more like he would kind of know the Skrulls might have this disdain or something like that. He would have something to kind of combat it, even if it failed. Kind of like
yeah,
Avengers 1 with Loki. He was ready for Loki at the moment. It was just he wasn't fully prepared because he hadn't fought an Asgardian, but he knew of Asgardians. He knew what he was up against. He just
mm-hmm,
couldn't necessarily win that battle or win that thing.
mm-hmm,
But I
mm-hmm.
do feel like we've seen real Fury sometimes, and then we don't see real Fury sometimes, though. That's kind of the way at least I feel about it.
Do you feel like he's like has like another scroll that like kind of plays as him as he
Yeah,
does something in the
because
background?
remember that scene where Maria Hill gets shot?
Mm-hmm.
That's where I started really thinking about that. I was like, oh, wait a minute. There might be a Fury running around right now that's not him.
Yeah,
Because he was in space. He would be a little more out of the loop than a little bit normal. But I was like, there are some times where he seems very aggressive or a little bit not quite himself. But there's other times where it does feel like it's Fury. So I don't know, man. Like, and he's such a good actor. It's like, damn, I don't even know what's going on. I don't know if they're doing this on purpose or what. But it's so damn well done, man. I really dig it. But that pretty much covers all the bases for the episode, man, and all that stuff. I think we got into all our positives, negatives, and in between. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see what happens with episode 4. We definitely want to hear from all you guys in the comments below. Definitely let us know what you thought about this latest episode. And this has definitely been a slept-on show for the MCU, but I really do implore all of you MCU fans out there, anyone that comes across this video, please check out the show if you haven't already. It's actually very solid. I think it's worth your time. It's not better than The Bear Season 2. It's not better than Succession, the finale, or something like that. I'm not trying to hype it up on that level. It's not The Last of Us, you know what I'm saying? But this isn't a She-Hulk. This isn't Inhumans, you know what I'm saying? This is worth your time if you're an MCU fan, if you're a Marvel fan, or if you just like political, sci-fi, stuff like that. This is definitely a show for you, and I think it's worth your time. And if you're a Samuel Jackson fan, they definitely give you plenty of that. Or if you've just been really critical or disappointed by Phases 4 and a little bit of Phase 5 right now, I think this is something that's going to give you a little more of that early Phases 1 through 3 vibe that you might be looking for. So I really do implore those that haven't given the show a shot, please do so. Let people know that that like this type of stuff. Hey, go check out this show. We definitely want to keep supporting the MCU so that way we continue to get the good stuff and, we don't see what's going on with The Flash where things are bombing and shit like that. Indiana Jones, you know what I mean? We want to
Yeah.
continue to support the stuff that we are fans of. We can be critical, we can keep it real, but let's try to at least keep some kind of nuance and some positivity in the situation, and check it out before you judge it, you know what I mean? But that's really just my soapbox for the day. But really give this show a shot, you know what I mean? Put some respect on that name. I double dog dare you. Say what one more goddamn time and check out Secret Invasion, all right? And if you know that quote, get in the comments and let me know.
Oh
But hell
my
yeah, man.
God.
That's pretty much it for the day. Do you have any parting words, man, before we piece the F out of here?
No, not as of right now. No. I'm pretty
I feel
good.
you, man. All right, then, y'all. We're going to be coming at y'all next Thursday, episodes 4. And we're going to be doing it on Thursdays from now on. You're going to get it Thursday morning or Thursday night. You're going to be getting the episode. All depends on time frame and when I have the time to edit and everything like that. But you're going to be getting these recaps on Thursdays for Secret Invasion and Ahsoka down the line, and any more of these Disney Plus shows. You know what I mean? And if we get any more HBO Max dopeness, that's going to probably end up on the Mondays like we did with House of the Dragon and Last of Us. So Monday, Thursday, that's going to be your TV recap days here on Fandom Frequency. So tune in every week on Thursday until we get to Ahsoka as well. And we're going to be having that goodness for you guys. And we got some more stuff coming down the pipeline. Don't go anywhere. Don't be sleeping on any of the dopeness right here. We love you. Stay safe out there. Much love. Peace out. And we'll see you again real soon.